This is Paul Nobles from eatperform.com. I am sitting here without April Blackford tonight. April has a realtor issue. She is moving. We actually talked about this in one of the most recent podcasts. We're trying to find a home for her. We think we actually might have found a home in North Raleigh. CrossFit might be an option because they have both CrossFit and open gym powerlifting type of training, so it seems like a pretty good fit for April, but I think she's going to go visit it pretty soon. She's been really busy with trying to get her home prepared so she can move easier. And so I've got really no one to talk to, so I'm going to need a lot of questions from everybody so we can kind of get rolling. Until then, I can talk a little bit about our Shark Tank experience. I wrote a post today talking about the fact that I was able to turn in all the materials. I don't know if everybody's seen the video yet, but we have a 10-minute video that we actually put up on the Facebook page. If you're in Science Lab Social, you've probably seen it. I did post it a day earlier in Science Lab Social. I know, looking at a lot of familiar faces in the webinar to familiar faces that I see in Science Lab Social. And so I felt like, it was just our thing together that we kind of built, meaning, me and the people in Science Lab Social. And so I wanted to have like a day for us to just enjoy it. Because what ends up happening is, people hear about this kind of thing, and like I posted it on the page, and some guy's like, "Hey, why don't you sponsor me?" It's like, yeah, I'm asking for money for a reason. We're trying to, expand the business, and typically the sponsorships aren't going to be the way you're going to do that. So that was kind of interesting. But looks like we may have to redo the video. I don't know if you guys saw that, but most of them are vertical because that's the way most people hold their phone. Mine would be really easy to redo, but I'm a little concerned about the people that are in Mexico and Australia and time differences and stuff. So it could be an issue. Overall, though, the communications I've had with the producer at Shark Tank seem really positive. At this point, I don't think they would be having me sign all these waivers if they weren't pretty serious about having me on the show. But, one thing I've learned in life is once something happens, get excited about it. Until then, just do the work and don't have high expectations, And what I've found with that, whether it be like something like this or whether it be fat loss, is that it's the journey that you actually end up enjoying. And, the process of being able to communicate with you guys, it's sort of funny. People think that like this is going to grow into being something huge. There's really nothing going to change. My sole focus is just to be there for you guys. And if you guys ends up being 4,000 or 5,000 people or 20,000 people or 30,000 people, it's going to be the same thing, and we'll just figure out ways to have more people to help you guys. But that's really the whole goal here. And that's the whole point of being on that show. So let's get going. We got a few questions. Andre saying, "Hey, Paul, how are you? How close do we need to get to our macros every day?" I think it's sort of interesting what we're talking about, whether it's macros or whether or not it's calories. And I would say that calories you should get close to virtually every single day. So if your calories are 2,400, you should be 2,350, 2,450, right? You should be in that ballpark most of the time. In terms of carbohydrates on workout days, in terms of, fats being too high, that to me is much more optional. Now, when I say that, that would actually drive April crazy because, she feels like she needs to be the bellwether and she wants you guys getting as close as possible. And I do agree that that's probably the best plan um, for kind of establishing this consistency. I mean, if you're eating 105 carbohydrates on workout days consistently, well, that's your plan, right? And I would say that you would want to look at that and make sure that you're planning a little bit better. One thing that we suggest all the time in these meetings, and they suggested in the forums, is to plan your meals a day ahead. And that's the best way to kind of stick with your macro plan. I think another step in that direction is to have like these convenience meals, to meals that you can sort of go to, that if it's a workout day, you have some chicken and rice available, or if it's a control day, maybe you want to have like some ground beef that you can make into like a taco salad or something like that. Those are easy type of transitions that allow you to be prepared for virtually anything. And so it sort of depends on what you're talking about, though. But if you're talking about, you're supposed to be at 250 grams of carbohydrates, but you're at 225, that's not something I would worry about. But if you're supposed to be at 250 and you're at 115, you're not planning very good. So I hope that helps. I think the other thing too is it's very easy to go up on fats, and so you want to really keep an eye on that, probably even more than carbohydrates, because days that you have 250 to 300 grams of carbohydrates, I don't think you would see near as big ramifications long term as if you were overeating fat, because fat stores easier. Doesn't mean you don't eat fat, because fat's also pretty important, but I think it's probably something that I keep an eye on more than I would my carbohydrates in that scenario. So I don't know if that's helpful or not. I need to pop up the questions window here. Hold on one second. Let me know if it is helpful, Andre. Otherwise, I'll just kind of move on, or I'll follow up afterwards. But Nikki's saying, how should I adjust my macros on competition day? I run obstacle course races for 3 miles up to 13, so I can be on course anywhere from 2 to 8 or 10 hours. Well, usually on the something like Tough Mudder, as an example, I've done that a few times. They're going to give you bananas. They're going to have water available for you. You certainly want to take advantage of that every single time you can. Even when you don't think that you should, you probably should. Nun tabs would be something that I would want to have. Maybe if you can carry like a Camelback type of thing. I don't know if you can or cannot. I know with like the Tough Mudder as an example, it would be kind of a sticky type thing, unless you just like ran ahead each obstacle and just put your pack ahead of the thing. I would normally have, I certainly would never do like a long, 3-hour race fasted. I'm going to want to eat a good amount of carbohydrates the night before, and I'm going to want to have a breakfast, not a huge breakfast, but something that, American potatoes, scrambled eggs, nothing like a steak, but maybe some kind of breakfast meat, just to get some food in you. But no, I would definitely have some carbohydrate if you can figure out a way to have intra carbohydrate, like especially for like the 8 to 10. The 8 to 10 though, I mean, they're really preparing you these days, and so my suspicion is that if you have a family member or something like that that can meet you halfway, that's usually a pretty good way to go. We are having a little bit of an issue, and I kind of knew that this was going to be a problem. I explained it to my wife that my dog is not going to like being down here alone, but here we are, and I have no April, so I'm kind of in trouble here. So I might have to try and figure out something with my dog. Um, Andre saying yes, I have trouble with protein, usually too low by 50 grams or so. It sort of depends on what you're saying is too low. I'll be right back. Let me just see if I can grab my dog and. So in terms of protein, if you're trying to get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, you can go as low as 0.7. And so for me, that would be anywhere from 115 to 120 grams. I don't typically go that low, but I'm usually around 140 to 145, and that is going to be more than adequate. So I would not really focus on 1 pound per, 1 gram per pound of body weight. I would really focus more on that 0.8 number, and then rely on the fact that some days you can go down to 0.7 and don't sweat it. Not going to be a big deal either way. Certainly you don't want to go down to 0.4, 0.5, but if you're trying to get 1 and you're down 50 grams, you're probably still hitting 0.8, 0.7, so you'd be good. Let's see. Nikki, I don't know if I answered your question well enough. The one thing that I would be real careful of is if you use creatine. Some people do experience cramping depending on the dose, and so I would be a little, I would say a little more cautious about that. If I was taking creatine, what I would probably do is just have it the night before with some carbohydrates, or if you were going to have it the day of a race, have it in the morning when you first wake up and have kind of a meal there. But I would typically not stray too much from whatever feels the most right to you. And because, you're going to be using up, even if you look at, 8 to 10 hours, okay, and you said 500 calories an hour, you're looking at 5,000 calories minimum. And, if you were walking around as an example, you might be at 150 to 200. So you're burning an excessive amount of calories. And so you're going to find that, over the next couple of days, you've worn out your central nervous system. Probably you're going to get, hungry for a lot of stuff you don't normally get hungry for. And, just indulge a little bit, because that's going to be a big part of your recovery. But I would come up with some good strategies and do what feels mostly right. Saying, I do carry a pack with me, no longer races, with Cliff gels and bars, mustard packs for cramps, water. I was wondering about carb loading the day before and recovery for after. In terms of recovery for after, or carbs the day before, I would just have something like, I always say this, but, like Chipotle with extra rice, double chicken, it's got enough salt in it. It's going to help you with your electrolytes. Post-workout, hamburger and French fries, because you need a lot of calories, and that's going to give you a lot of calories. And so my usual go-to, I almost never have like, the end-all be-all hamburger, French fries, root beer kind of thing. That's the one time I absolutely do, and I absolutely need it. And it does help. Usually when I wasn't doing that, it would take 3 to 4 days to recover. And then usually, after a while, now some of it is I just got fitter, but really 1 to 2 days. And I really do think that amount of energy, helps. When you have a hamburger, French fries, and root beer, like root beer shake, that's like 2,000, 2,500 calories. That goes a long way towards recovery. So I hope that helps. She's saying, because they sell hamburgers at the festivals after, so there we go. True. but it's really missing an opportunity for a much better hamburger experience. So, the one thing that I would tell you guys is when you eat outside of the box, just don't do it bad, okay? And what I mean by bad, I don't mean bad foods. I mean, don't go to McDonald's and have a hamburger. Go to the best hamburger place in the town that you live in, right? And that goes for pizza and pasta and all these things that you might have on occasion. Now, certainly there's an argument to be made for getting a Papa Murphy's pizza and watching a movie with your wife on date night. So definitely that's going to be something that you would want to have on occasion. But the good majority of the time, if I'm having pizza, it's going to be one of the best experiences in the Twin Cities because I just don't eat that stuff all that often. And so it's got to be a home run. Same thing with hamburgers, same thing with pasta. These are things that I might eat. I do eat pizza a little bit more often because we go to this one place. And I can usually fit it in pretty easily. But, something like, hamburgers or, I can't even remember the last time I had a hamburger. No, I do have bunless, patties and stuff like that fairly often, but that's not the whole French fry experience and things of that nature. Though actually, even as I'm saying this, I do have baked fries and hamburger patties a fair amount, and it's pretty easy to sort of fit that in. The issue is when you're frying them in oils, and then you've got the the cheese and the bun, and you're doing a triple patties and all that other type of stuff. But if you eat a reasonable amount of food, have a salad with it and some baked fries, the calorie count really isn't that high. And I know we did get a little bit off of what we're talking about with the long cardio type events, but I just wanted to give you some general ideas and maybe some ideas on days that you aren't. So let's get to Karen's question. Karen's saying, brand new, been paleo for 2 years with a major change in my weight and body dynamics. However, now my workouts are suffering and I am exhausted by afternoon. I ate most of my calories today, but I'm uncomfortably full. Any advice? Also, I cannot easily move through the site. Any tutorials? Well, first of all, yes, there are tutorials. Get with a coach. The closer that you snuggle up to somebody like Suzanne Carr or Stacy Kramer or April or Caitlin, Catherine, all these people, they have that ETP moderator for a reason. They're there. They're a resource for you. They're being paid to serve you. And so you not asking them for help is sort of missing the point of what you bought. And the forum can be unwieldy at times because, we just have so much great information in there. But at the same note, you can easily ask, I'm thinking Chris Dietz, I'm thinking, there's just so many people that are available for you. Chris, as an example, as the greeter, he would have been the first person that you probably talked to. In terms of like feeling uncomfortable and uncomfortably full, that's kind of normal, right? If you weren't eating very much and you started eating a little bit more, should make you feel a little uncomfortable. We'll often have people say, well, I'm up 2-3 pounds and it kind of scares me. And it's like, I made a video this weekend and I was sort of like, what did you think would happen, right? And, the process of, the first 2 to 3 days coming in and thinking that you'll have this figured out and that all of a sudden your metabolism will just kick in high gear, that's just not how the body works, and, you're going to pay the price a little bit for making your body inflexible over the last 2 years. And it wasn't paleo that was the problem. You can stick with paleo. Paleo is going to be fine, but uninformed paleo is what ultimately caused your problems with the workouts and ultimately is the thing that sort of landed you where you're at right now. And so you're going to have to fight through that a little bit. The problem with being totally paleo, one of the reasons why you see people, with Rice Krispie treats and Oreos and stuff like that, is because it's really hard to do paleo and do eat to perform, because like you said, it's really a lot of food. The whole point of paleo is that it fills you up to a point where you don't want to eat anymore. Well, that's fine if you were overeating and you were indulging, and I'm assuming that when you first started off, it was great results for you, but your body's going to adjust to that over time. And so if you don't upregulate your metabolism by eating, some nutrient-dense foods, sweet potatoes, rice, those types of things are a little bit better. I'd be interested to know, Karen, what you're eating kind of out of the box, because if you're just eating paleo, and if you're just eating like one sweet potato, that will really fill you up, and that can be problematic. The other thing that we see is people will often sort of embrace like the whole Rice Krispie treat thing, and fast absorbing carbs a little too quickly, and so they don't really their cells just aren't flexible enough to metabolize those carbohydrates at that point. And that's why, another reason why some people will feel what you're feeling. So Karen is not answering, so I'm going to quit waiting, and I'll address it if she comes back. But at this point, we're starting to get a lot of questions, and so I don't want to say I eat mostly vegetables and meat. My carbs come from mostly sweet potato. I would suggest that, first of all, if you eat mostly meats and vegetables, you're going to be full all the time. And if you're just upping your calories, that's really not what this is about. And the other thing that I might suggest would be white rice. And I'm not the only one that suggests that. Rob Wolf will suggest that. Certainly Mark Sisson would suggest that. And that's going to allow a little bit more flexibility. I think what happens is that people start something like Whole30, which is like super strict, and if you were coming from like, eating McDonald's every day, and you move to that, it would be marginally better. But your body's going to adjust to that, and it's not going to end up being kind of the result that you want, right? It's sort of where you are right now, where you're sort of stuck and your workouts are suffering. And so what I would do if I were you, sweet potatoes also can be really filling. That's why I suggest white rice. But I would start adding these things in post-workout, and that would be a plus. He said, and I never eat anything from a box. When I said out of the box, I didn't mean like a macaroni and cheese box. I just meant out of the box of, a super restrictive way of eating. Nope, never ate junk food. Mostly went paleo because of menopause and gluten allergies. That's fine. That's great. But I'm just telling you, if you're just going to try and eat to perform, eating 2,500 calories of kale and chicken, you're going to feel uncomfortable, and you're really not doing eat to perform very well. I would argue that you're not eating very well, in fact. Just because, there's no magic to just meats and veggies. Now, I eat mostly meats and veggies, but I think this whole idea that meats and veggies are somehow magical, they're not. If you want good muscle protein turnover, if you want to feel better after your workouts, like I said, having some, rice post-workout, that's going to be a plus. Having some potatoes post-workout, and oh, by the way, there's no difference between sweet potatoes and potatoes, so that opens up some options for you. And so I would really just start to kind of expand, what you feel comfortable eating, and see how that feels. But The more fibrous vegetables you eat, that would be the one thing that I would really track if I were you, is I would really start tracking all those vegetables, because a lot of times fiber intake gets obscenely high, in someone like your situation, and that will cause like bloating and uncomfortable and things of that nature. And so you want to be a little careful. So early on, I would really start checking that fiber, because you can't just like bump up the amount of food. A lot of times you'll end up bumping up the amount of fiber, and that's not going to help your muscle protein turnover and your recovery. Said, I agree I'm not eating enough calories for my workouts. Yes. That's where the whole, energy dense argument loses me. Some energy density is required. And so if, what you need to find is some things that are respectful of the way that you eat, and then allow you to have more calories. Now, what a lot of people will do in the case of paleo is they'll just up their fats to an obscene amount, and frankly, that's not going to help your workouts. That would help your, your resting type of energy burn if you were doing like a lot of low intensity or something of that nature. But sounds like you're trying to get more out of your workouts, and so you have to figure out a way to incorporate some carbohydrates in that mix, and that's going to be helpful. Do you think quinoa? I think quinoa is okay. Once again, it's kind of a fibery type thing. I'd much rather see you doing something like white rice. Sounds like you get enough fiber from vegetables where you don't need the fiber from quinoa. In terms of the protein in quinoa, it's kind of marginal. It's the source of it's not great. I don't dislike quinoa. I just don't think that it's like this magic food. If you were a vegetarian, as an example, and you were over reliant on, things like fruit and stuff like that, then I would say, yeah, quinoa would be a good option for you. But it sounds like quinoa would maybe contribute to some of the issues that you're having. So I would probably stick to white rice and potatoes if I were you. So I'm going to move on from there, unless you have something more specific, because we do have a whole bunch of people. Let's see. So white rice after workouts. Yep. Starting off, I would have the majority of your carbohydrates post-workout. And then as you start to feel better about that, then start moving a gradual amount. And you could start moving to pre-workout tomorrow if that feels right. But, what you really want to focus on is what feels the most right for you. So I'm going to move to Debbie's question here. Will this program work for someone starting at age 53 with limited ability to work out due to full lumbar back fusion? I do arms, weights, and some legs starting 6 months ago. I just got my macros yesterday, but waiting on my Fitbit to come in. Shoot, I don't have my Fitbit on. It doesn't really matter, but sometimes when I take a shower, I forget to put it back on. So just got my macros, but waiting on my Fitbit to come in, get started on food plan, but still going to gym 2 or 3 times a week. Tell me it's not too late. Well, it's not too late. I'm 46 years old. I'm not that far different from 53. The science of total daily energy expenditure applies to every single person on the planet. So even if you were sedentary, you'd be fine. And so, I think the Fitbit will be enlightening. I think Karen, as an example, would really benefit from a Fitbit, because what happens in the case of paleo type folks, well, one, I'll give you a scenario, Debbie, that will also maybe describe some of what Karen was talking about. Okay. So what happens with people that do a lot of high intensity and don't eat a lot of food is that their non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or their NEAT, is the thing that gets compromised. So they'll go to CrossFit, right? They'll just kill themselves in the gym, and then they come home and they're like, oh goodness, I don't have any energy, and all the things that you would normally need energy for, you don't have. And so maybe, some people will overly caffeinate at that point, trying to get energy. And so that's why, we always used to joke that food is the original 5-hour energy. But I think for you, you're going to want to strengthen the muscles around your injury. And so sticking with the workouts is going to make some sense. But at the same time, you have to be respectful of your injury. You probably don't know this, but one of the reasons why I got fit was because I was in a motorcycle accident where I tore my ankle off of my leg. And while a completely different injury from you, the recovery time was probably pretty similar. And the one thing, I had already started on my fitness journey. And luckily for me, I was like, this is the perfect time for me to research. A lot of that research is ultimately what became Eat to Perform. And so what I would suggest to you is, and this will be the thing that'll allow you to recover better as well, is keep moving. The one thing that I did, I'm just an antsy human being. I'm a pacer. I mean, just all this other type of stuff, right? So I am just not the type of guy that just wants to sit in a chair for 6 months. And so it was sort of that antsiness that kind of got me moving. And I actually had a follow-up surgery 1 year afterwards. The kind of surgery, it was bunions, and they took all the hardware out of my leg. And the recovery period was supposed to be like 3 months, which like killed me because at that point I was already starting to get fit. I was moving. I was feeling really good about myself. And I just couldn't stand the thought that I was going to be stuck in a chair for 3 months again. But the one thing that I had learned was that if I moved and if I stretched my calf, that the inflammation in my foot would go up through my leg and it would get processed throughout my body. And that's going to be similar no matter what injury you have. Moving is going to be helpful. Doing what you can is going to be helpful. Having a Fitbit and knowing what your energy intake is helpful. Like I said, if Karen had a Fitbit, I think what she would find is that 2 years of suffering, 2 years, not suffering, 2 years of paleo would be something that, has kind of caused her resting metabolic rate and her non-exercise activity thermogenesis to get really low. So a Fitbit allows you to monitor it. Now, if you're just going to sit there and undereat, while having a Fitbit, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You want to eat or have your macros somewhat close to where your Fitbit is. Now, if you're coming from a really restricted background, you're eating 1,300 calories, you want to gradually move that, and that's what our coaches walk you through doing. Let's see, Debbie did have a follow-up. I've hit ICHF 20 or less carbs for over a year, no weight loss, even with the gym. And yes, tired all the time. Yeah, so you're going to want to be real careful coming into something like Eat to Perform, where you're going to gradually add in the carbs. Like I said with Karen, you're going to want to have them mostly post-workout in the beginning, and then gradually move some pre-workout. But, one of the things that we hear a lot in this class, is people that have some level of frustration for many reasons. And what you have to understand is that you guys have done some damage. Doesn't mean that you're not fixable, right? So I was in your same exact boat, and I was able to get healthy as well. But it takes time. It's not a 2-day process. I'm sorry that my dog is barking again. And I'm probably going to have to go get her in a second. But you have to be patient. and it's going to not be a linear process for you guys, and you're going to have to really seek a better level of understanding, because clearly you wouldn't be here if you had figured it out. And so that's okay. I think it's empowering to get better and more useful knowledge. And the interesting thing about what you guys are saying is, what you're saying is actually really useful. It's basically what our control days are. And so don't think of everything that you've learned up to this point as not being helpful, because it is helpful. Hey, come here. Hey, come here. But it is helpful. And it's going to be one of the things that allows you to sort of, Debbie, talking about your injury, it's actually some of those carbohydrates that will allow you to recover better and faster. But then you use your lower calorie, lower carbohydrate days to kind of flush through that. And that's how you kind of clear that out. And so that's a process. And when you start off, your fat metabolism is going to be a lot better than your carbohydrate metabolism. And so you'll start to feel a little uncomfortable. You'll start to feel a little bloated. Sometimes you'd want to look at fiber there, like I mentioned with Karen. But just don't just dive in and go, well, I wasn't eating carbohydrates and that worked, so now I'm going to go to a bunch of carbohydrates. Really you want to start slowly, because you're kind of probably damaged at this point a little bit, and just work to becoming more whole with your approach. So that said, Robin saying, I'm looking for a sugar substitute that isn't stevia. Recommendations. Sorry if this isn't an appropriate question. This is my first webinar. Sugar substitute that isn't stevia. I'm curious why you would want a sugar substitute, because there's lots of sugar in nature that are perfectly fine in moderation. Watermelon comes to mind, right? Certain amounts of fruits come to mind. It's sort of interesting to me that people are like, flavoring their water with like, flavor substitutes, when it's just as easy to throw a lemon or a cucumber or something in there for flavoring, and that's just as good. So I'd be interested to know why you're interested in a sugar substitute. I don't personally like stevia, but I don't really use a whole lot of sugar substitutes. I typically just fit in something that is, a sweetener. I just had dark chocolate macadamia nuts. It sort of depends on what you're looking for. So if I knew that, then maybe that would be helpful. So I'll follow up. I don't know if Robin's a woman or a man, but if she comes back, then we'll maybe deal with that once she is back. David's saying, Paul just started Eat to Perform. Really like working out 5 to 6 days a week. It's my stress relief. So do I. Am I going to slow down my weight loss significantly because I will be eating more due to workouts? Yes, you will. And that's okay. It's probably not going to be as bad as you think. He did have a follow-up. He says, sorry, CrossFit is my drug of choice. That's fine that that's your drug of choice. If you're CrossFitting 6 days a week, though, my guess is that you're causing some level of stress that is probably prohibitive as it relates to your fat loss goals. And so sometimes you have to make a choice. And I made that choice a long time ago. And I decided that I would rather, CrossFit occasionally, weight lift, and then have some long endurance Um, I will say the challenge of CrossFitting 6 days a week was nice, but I was working out at 60% a lot. And basically, when you break it down, CrossFit is a deficit strategy that causes a lot of stress. So when you undereat in CrossFit, it causes like the super stress atmosphere, affects your sleep negatively, all these kinds of things, right? But what I do is I CrossFit 2 to 3 days a week. I strength train 2 to 3 days a week, and then I'll mix in some long endurance and listen. I probably work out every day of my life, but it's not the way that you guys work out, right? Because 7 years into this, I've learned what works for me and what doesn't. So if I'm squatting, as an example, I know that I probably need a rest day after squats. If I'm deadlifting, not really. Deadlifting kind of works for me. And so I can usually still get in a workout after that. So I might, after deadlift day, do a WOD, depending on the WOD, will depend on how I modify or not. If I haven't done a lot of cardio that week, I'll modify down. Maybe do the women's weight, even though, I can RX a lot of workouts. What you've got to ask yourself is, what's the point of my workout? And so if the point of your workout is to get in a good sweat, nice cardio workout, working real close to your 1 rep max just to get in RX doesn't make a lot of sense. And so when someone's trying for fat loss, what I often tell them is, first of all, are you eating your total daily energy expenditure? And if you are, see, that's the other thing too, and I'm going to lose track of thought, and that's why it's often helpful to have April in these. But one thing that is really super helpful is to have some days where you aren't killing it. And so you're still working out, but you're able to cycle out your carbs, and so you can kind of deal with that inflammation a little bit. But once again, in my view, if I'm CrossFitting, and I'm actually pretty good at CrossFit the way that CrossFit is intended, like the way that CrossFit Games athletes. So if it's a 8-minute WOD, I'm going to do pretty good in it. If it's like a 20 to 30-minute WOD, that's not going to be my jam. I don't train for that. If I do long endurance, I'm going to want to do it at a controlled pace because I'm not going to get hurt that way. And so, when I am doing high intensity, I want it to be high intensity. I want to be able to go all out. And that would be one of the things that I would suggest. But what I would say to you, though, is you want to try and, if you're eating close to your total daily energy expenditure and you're losing weight, you're probably overeating, or it's benefiting your metabolism, and then you're working out better and you're getting more work capacity, things of that nature. If the weight stalls, though, okay, and let's say that you were trying to get to a little bit of a deficit, try to lose a little bit of fat, the thing that we often suggest is just try the minimal dose, MED, minimal effective dose. What that'll do for you is kind of show you the value of, first of all, of the recovery from when you have food. But, if you're working out 6 days a week and then, I would, the thing that I would caution you is, are you trying to earn food? That's it. Are you trying to get better at working out, or are you trying to earn food? And you have to be really honest with yourself, because that's the kind of thing that you go, oh, well, it's really not, that for me. And it's like, but, I always have this back thing, and my IT band's kind of hurting, and this and that. if you look at my interview that I did on Barbell Shrugged 2 years ago, and you look at me to this day, I mean, I put on 10 to 15 pounds since that interview. Like, I'm so much more muscular. And the reason why that is because I took out the CrossFit. I took out a couple days of CrossFit, started doing some more pump style training, and I got stronger in the process, and that kind of helped things. And while there are some elements that I'm not as good at CrossFit, most elements I'm pretty competitive, and a lot of elements I'm a lot better. Like, I couldn't do legless rope climbs, as an example. I couldn't deadlift 475 pounds. So these are all things that I can do now. So yes, that is what helps me learn to be okay with scaling and not killing myself. Do you eat less like a recovery day when you don't CrossFit? Well, it depends. What are my goals at that point? If my goals aren't fat loss, which, often isn't my goal. I'm, 168 pounds. And so, a lot of times I won't need control days. But once again, being able to work out differently allows me a lot more flexibility. So I might not need near as much carbohydrates and recovery as you need because you're CrossFitting so much. See, even if you have a lifting session, do you eat less like a recovery day when you don't CrossFit? Well, a lifting session, I'm always going to eat more, and I'm going to eat more than CrossFit. And the reason being is that I want to get the adaptation from the lifting. And so under eating on days that you're lifting sort of misses the point. You're lifting to build muscle and stronger muscle. And so for you to get that look that you want, and we all, I don't care who you are, you want to look a little bit better, in the mirror. Whatever that is for you, I don't think anybody should be embarrassed about saying that. I think that, that's one of the things that we sell, and I'm serious about that. I think that, if you're at a CrossFit gym, as an example, like, yippee, that's great that you can deadlift 500 pounds. I could deadlift 500 pounds too if I went to 225 pounds, but can you do it and still look like you lift weights, right? That's the goal. And I think that, as we sort of graduate, as a culture of people working out, whether it's CrossFit, powerlifting, whatever, we need to be honest about that, and I think that, Mark Bell talks about that, quite a bit. It's like, yeah, if you lift weights, yeah, it's nice to be able to lift a heavy amount of weight, but if you don't look the part, like, what's the point? That's not why you signed up in the first place, right? And so trying to come up with an approach, and for a lot of us too, we're getting to this game a little older. I didn't start till I was 40. I'm almost 47 right now, and so, you can't look at the people that have been fit their whole life and then judge yourself against them on day one. Like, even today, we were working out, the other day, I had my shirt off. There was two younger guys, they're shredded, both of them played collegiate athletics. I, of course, did not. I sat on the couch for 30 years. So there's a price to pay for that, Now I'm still really lean. I don't think that, we'd sell a whole lot of packages if I wasn't. People sort of expect that I sort of know what I'm talking about and can implement it. And so I do. But I think the key is just to really try and get as much food around your workouts as you can, and then find areas where, you can get away with, having a little bit of a deficit. Long endurance days are good for that. The one thing that we've been talking about a lot with Fitbits and stuff like this is the low intensity steady state. I mean, just going for a walk for an hour a day. I mean, it's just so meditational. It's so good for you. It doesn't wear your body down. If you want to work out 6 days a week, adding in, an hour and 15 hike, is probably going to be better for you and not worse. And then it would be another day that you can, work on that fat adaptation where you're relying a little bit more on fats and not so much on carbohydrates, so you can kind of cycle some of that inflammation out. So I hope that helps. I'm really, really behind because there's no April to keep me in check. Let's see. So let's see. Andre saying, care to elaborate on matching your Fitbit calories? I have a surge and my calories are set at around 3,100. On a slow day, it shows 3,300 or so. Last 5 days, I've been above 4K. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that means you should eat 4K, but I think what it does mean is if you're eating 2,500 and you're struggling sleeping, it'll show you that it's kind of catching up to you. I think that having these devices in terms of calorie burn is like really super enlightening for people. And so for you to see that, you have 4,000 calories, then it comes down to eating an appropriate amount for what you do. Are you eating, more carbohydrates on days that you're really not doing that much work, or are you relying more on fats? Also, do you have more fat to use, right? And so if you have more fat to use, then eating 3,100 and then burning 4,000 is probably going to make some sense for you. Just depends. If you're finding that you're burning 4,000 and you're eating 3,100 and you're not losing any weight, well, that might tell you that it's a little stressful. And a lot of times, if you move that up to about 3,500, you'll see that your weight doesn't necessarily move all that much, but you'll start sleeping better. And then if you wanted to come for a deficit later on, you don't have to go into the low twos to get there, right? If you're starting from 4,000 to 3,500, you can go down to 3,000 and then actually see some movements. But if you're already at 3,000 and then you have to go to 2,200, 22,000, now all of a sudden it's stressful. And so that would be my thoughts in that regard. Mary's saying it's her first webinar. So I teach cardio classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I also lift on those days. I have 3 races coming up this year, a 10K, 10 miler, and a half marathon. I can't fit anything else into my Monday, Wednesday, Friday. How do you think I should handle training for these races? I don't understand what you're saying, Mary. Are you saying that you only train on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or do you run on off days? Let's see. So I teach cardio. I also lift on those days. I have 3 races coming up this year. 2K, 10 miles. I can't fit anything else into my Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Probably don't need to. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you're teaching classes and lifting, you're going to want to make sure that your calorie numbers are up. And I would assume that you're running on off days. Yeah, so I try to run on off days, but didn't want to go too long, too hard, especially because they are supposed to be non-stress days, right? Well, they're not stress days if you eat an appropriate amount of food. Every person is going to be different. I mean, your recovery, like I was just saying, who was I talking to there? David, with CrossFit. I mean, if you like CrossFit and you're recovering great and you are working out at 100%, hey, go for it, and if you're hitting your goals and doing these things. But if you aren't seeing the results that you want, then we have to start playing with the elements, right? And so my My guess is that you're almost certainly under eating on the days that you are working out, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. On your run days, what I would probably suggest is some level of fats being a little bit higher. You wouldn't want to go low carb, but if you guys can hold on 1 second, I just need to see. Hold on 1 second, please. Come on. Here. Okay, sorry. So here is my dog. We're going to have to do this yet again. We had to do this a couple weeks ago. Let's see. So what I would suggest to you is that on your, rather than having the stress atmosphere, you're going to want to lower your carbohydrates, maybe have fats a little bit higher, and then have like 1 or 2 kind of low activity days. But, you know, you want to play with that. I mean, the goal, you know, I think that one of the things that happens is that we'll start talking about, well, what's your real goal here? You know, is it working out all the time, or is it, fat loss? And then people go, it's fat loss. It's absolutely fat loss. And it's like, well, okay, that's fine. But, really getting better with exercise is really the most important thing here. And so what's going to do that? More work capacity, more recovery, and more food in that process. And so you really want to play with that. What I would suggest is that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, those are going to be your high carb days, okay? On your long endurance days, you're going to have carbohydrates. Now, let me give you just an example. So if I was to have 300 grams of carbohydrates on, this is not an exact number for you, okay? I'm just putting that out there. So you're going to want to talk to a coach, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of what it might look like. So on my lifting days like your Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would have 300 grams of carbohydrates. Maybe if I was, trying to kind of keep, stress atmosphere down, things of that nature, maybe I go down to 225 to 200 on long endurance days if I was, trying to keep inflammation down. And then, of course, have a couple days of rest and recovery. So, you might be working out 5 days at that point. And then I'm sorry, this is really distracting with my dog, and I told my wife that this was no way that this was going to work, but she didn't want to believe me for like the second time, which was kind of annoying. And then of course no April, so that really sucks. So I hope that's helpful. Is it, let me know, because I will try and muscle through this here, but I'm very distracted at the moment, and I'm sorry that you guys are having to wait and that this is taking longer than it normally should. Catherine's saying, I actually struggle to get enough fat. It's supposed to be 75 grams, usually getting 30 to 35 grams. I'm vegan. Any suggestions? Well, the big suggestion would be coconut oil or coconut milk. Coconut milk smoothies. I have like coconut milk smoothies. Actually, I haven't had one in a while. Probably should have one soon. Coconut milk smoothies I use. You might want to use like full fat coconut milk as a way to kind of get those fats up. Nuts would be another one. Chocolate, dark chocolate macadamia nuts. Those always get my fats up. Any type of nut butters are going to be good sources for fats, peanut butter, hazelnut butter, things of that nature. So those are the things that I would try. I don't know if you're still here, so If you are, then you can hit me up. See, Dina's saying, hello, this is Dina and I'm a noob. Hello, Dina the noob. How often should I be eating? How soon after workout should I be eating? I would say that how often you eat is highly dependent. You know, I often tell people I only eat twice a day. You know, that's just what works for me. You know, it's convenient. I'll have some snacking in between. But in general, I like to eat 2 bigger meals. What I would suggest, though, is some people have a problem with that, and so they need 5 meals a day. So, you know, they're okay with smaller meals. I like to have my stomach stretched and feel full. So that's why I like to have 2 bigger meals, and then that allows me to eat foods that I enjoy a little bit more. So usually I'll have, steak, around noon. That's the problem that people have if you go to like 2 meals is, people say, well, if you skip breakfast, you're going to end up making bad choices. Well, yeah, if the first thing that you eat is a donut, then you're going to have a problem because you're going to be hungry. I really don't want to have to end this webinar because of my dog barking, but I'm really very distracted at this point. I don't know if that helps or not. Dina with another question. I have PCOS and my body does not process carbs really well. Insulin resistance, so I can't really eat a lot of white rice, breads, dairy, sugars. Will this have a negative effect on eat reform? It won't have a negative effect on eat reform, but you're going to have to be smarter about your approach. Now, that said, go to the forum and you'll find hundreds of people with the exact same condition that have been doing eat reform for a long time. The person that you definitely want to befriend is Lori Walsh, and she will be super helpful in that regard. And so let me try and see if I can get my dog taken care of. Again. Here, get here. Come here. Stay. Sit. Okay, let's see. Michelle is saying, Paul just signed up, haven't been in the gym for about a month. My appetite has declined substantially in that time. That seems normal. This has created a cycle of no energy left for a gym session, right? Usually when you don't eat food, you're not going to have a lot of energy. There's something I can do to increase my appetite in the immediate short term, as I know once I go to the gym regularly again, my appetite will increase naturally. Well, I do like walking in that scenario and just figuring out a way to sort of get out. It sounds like the gym is sort of a negative experience for you. That's not something that I can relate to all that well, because when I go to the gym, like somebody said earlier, it's sort of my therapy. But I was in your shoes for many years because I was under eating. And so what would happen is I would get into this lethargic state and I would be doing stuff that I didn't enjoy. And so I think there's a couple things that sort of need to happen. One, you need to start strategically adding more food. Okay, that's going to be one thing that's going to help with your energy level. The other thing that I think is probably more important than that is to find something that you enjoy, and walking, some level of resistance training. It doesn't necessarily need to be weight training. Could be body weight, could be dancing, could be, lots of different gymnastics. I mean, I think a lot of people just focus on like, oh gosh, I just got to go to the gym and get something in. And they don't think of their full options. Roller skating, roller skating like burns a ton of calories, you know, and it's fun, you know. And so that's how I would think of whatever your struggle is. But I'll tell you one thing, if you go to roller skating and you roller skate for 2 to 3 hours and you don't end up hungry, you're a mutant. You know, I mean, the some of it is just kind of getting the car headed in the right direction, right? And once you do that, that will make a big difference. Let's see, Dina saying, let's see, no, we answered Dina. I think we might be left with Teddy. You should put a Fitbit on your jog just to see what it would read. I have thought of that a million times. I mean, I am dying to do a Fitbit post because there's a lot of funny things that I think about with Fitbit. So you'll just have to wait for that post. Anyway, I'm going to take this opportunity to shut it down because my dog's going to get a little frustrated real soon here and want to leave her little bed there. And I appreciate everybody being here. Really sorry for the distractions. I learned really late that April wasn't going to make it. And so that became a problem. I explained to my wife that this dog thing was going to become an issue. She did not want to hear me. And so luckily, you know, I'm going to show her the last half hour where the dog just completely destroyed this session. So normally these webinars don't go this bad. I think this is unprofessional of me. And so I apologize to you guys. This won't happen again. I guarantee you that. So I appreciate everybody being here once again. I hope the information worked out ultimately, but I apologize. Talk to you later.